First at 6, the NAACP, ACLU, several disability rights organizations, and multiple state leaders are all demanding action because of an ABC 15 investigation.
We exposed the video showing two Phoenix police officers immediately going after a deaf man with cerebral palsy, then repeatedly punching and tasering that man. Tonight, our investigation into this case continues.
You'll hear directly from the two main officers involved, but before we get to that, we again want to show body camera footage of this full incident, so consider this a warning. The video lasts about a minute. It is violent and it is difficult to watch.
Hey, buddy, stop where you're at. Have a seat. Taser, taser, taser. Get your hands behind your back. 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 Hold them. Move, move. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. Ultra X-ray taser deploy more units. Hand behind your back! Hand behind your back! One more! Hand behind your back! More! Hand behind your back! Hand behind your back! Hand behind your back! Now! Hand behind your back! Okay.
And that takes us to tonight's story. Phoenix says the arrest is now under internal investigation.
But that hasn't stopped those officers from going to court and making sure that man was officially charged with assault and resisting arrest. Here's ABC 15 Chief Investigator Dave Biscopy.
We were in court for what's called a preliminary hearing. Basically, that's a hearing to decide if there's enough evidence for charges to go forward. And that means the two main officers had to take the stand under oath.
Since that day.
This is Officer Benjamin Harris, and this is Officer Kyle Sue. They're in court to testify against Tyrone McAlpin. He's deaf, he has cerebral palsy, and he's here for a judge to decide if there's probable cause for his arrest on August 19th, 2024.
Have a seat.
So why did officers go after Tyrone? It's because a Circle K called about this guy. His name is Derek, and while Derek was being removed, he pointed at Tyrone walking across the street and claimed Tyrone had assaulted him.
And you didn't confirm Derek's story with any of the witnesses inside?
No. Dude, why don't you wait here first?
Derek's story would end up being false, but in that moment, the officers decided to take Derek's word at face value, leave him, and go after Tyrone.
We already established that when you pulled into the parking lot and yelled at Tyrone, he didn't respond to you, correct?
Correct.
Did you check to see if he had headphones in?
I didn't notice.
Okay. Did you check to see if there was a reason why he couldn't hear you?
No.
Did you try to wave him down?
No.
During your initial interaction with Tyrone, you wrote that Tyrone raised his hands. Can you describe what that looked like?
Yeah, he raised them in a manner that appeared to me he was going to use them to punch me.
So he raised his hands like this?
No.
Can you demonstrate again, please?
Yeah, he raised them in a manner that appeared to be ready to strike me. So what that communicated to me is I was about to get assaulted, not that someone was giving up.
Now, is it possible that Tyrone raised his hand to protect himself from your punches?
That's not what his body language communicated to me.
I'm asking you if it's possible. Are you saying it's not possible? Okay.
I don't know if it's possible. So just underneath my ring finger at that.
If you've noticed the cast on Officer Harris's hand, it's because he broke his finger arresting Tyrone. And at the end of his testimony, the prosecutor asked Officer Harris how all of this could have been avoided.
The defendant had just put his hands down or said, I can't hear, or I need to write, or something like that. What would you have done?
I would have had him sit down, made motions with my hands to have him sit down, and then I would have gotten a pen.
You wouldn't have
paper and pen out for him.
You wouldn't have punched him in the head and knocked him to the ground and tasered him?
No.
Now, let's get to the testimony from Officer Sue.
As I was going to pull in the park, I looked over and observed the defendant actively swing at Officer Harris, and then I as I was putting my car in the park, and I jumped out and ran over there.
Sue's body camera fell off, but during the arrest, he testified that Tyrone bit his hand.
Can you hold up your hand high so we can see, show the judge exactly, point where it was that he bit you?
Right there.
Okay.
There's no body camera footage that shows the bite. And here's what happened when Tyrone's attorneys asked the officer to go through the video.
Anywhere in there?
Nope.
And stop at the moment when he says Tyrone bit him.
Right there.
The moment Officer Sue pinpointed is when the other officer's camera pans up and you can't see Tyrone. The defense asked Sue if it was possible that he cut or scraped his hand on Tyrone's mouth or the ground while choking him. But Officer Sue said no and denied using a chokehold.
Is that your arm there, directly around his throat?
The one on the bottom?
Yes.
That's my arm.
Okay. And that is around Tyrone's throat, correct?
Looks too hard to tell.
So how is this not a chokehold?
When I think of a chokehold, I think of two arms from the same person.
In a bizarre moment, the prosecution then got back up to prove Tyrone bit the officer, first showing pictures, then asking for a demonstration.
Would you open up your mouth and stick your wrist in your mouth?
Say again?
Could you open your mouth and stick your wrist in your mouth? And then pull it out to the side? Did you just cut your arm?
Objection, Your Honor. This is extremely speculative and really doesn't.
Overruled. I just watched him do it. That's not speculation. Just demonstrating.
Officer, did you just cut your arm when you did that?
I did not.
At this time, I do believe the state has presented sufficient evidence to establish.
In the end, the judge found there was probable cause for the criminal case to move forward against Tyrone. The judge didn't give an explanation, but the ruling means Tyrone still faces felony charges of aggravated assault and resisting arrest.
Mr. McAlpin, this will conclude today's hearing. I'll have you stepped over to my bailiff just to sign for those release conditions, but good luck to you moving forward in your case.
Again, Phoenix is not commenting on the arrest because they say it's under investigation. But this case is a sensitive one. We've learned the DOJ is now aware of the case. And it's important to remember that the arrest happened after the DOJ released its historic investigation into Phoenix PD. And the feds say they want to put the department under federal oversight. I'm investigator Dave Biskobing, ABC 15, Arizona.
Dave, tonight, this is video of Phoenix police arresting a black man who's deaf and has cerebral palsy. That arrest is violent, and in this story, we're going to show you close body camera footage that's intense and difficult to watch, so please consider this your warning.
It happened late this summer, and that means it happened after the Department of Justice released its historic and severe report against Phoenix PD. Here's ABC 15 Chief Investigator Dave Biskobing.
Yeah, we reached out to Phoenix police about this arrest, but they aren't saying much about it. They only confirmed it's now under internal investigation. But this case raises a lot of questions, and it really serves as sort of a test case. And that's both for Phoenix and the DOJ. See, Phoenix is trying to prove it doesn't need federal oversight. But will the DOJ trust the city when things like this continue to happen? You've seen the surveillance video. A Phoenix officer pulling into a parking lot, pulling in front of a man, darting out of his truck, then immediately going after him. Now, this is the body camera footage.
Everybody stop where you're at.
Remember, the man is deaf and has cerebral palsy.
See. Taser. Get your hands behind your back. Get your hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. Get your hands behind your back. Hold them. Move. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. Ultra X-ray taser deploy more units. Hand behind your back. Hand behind your back. Get more. Hand behind your back! More! Hand behind your back! Hand behind your back!
Between the two officers, the man is punched at least 10 times and tasered 4 times.
He can't understand them. And he's deaf and he's physically compromised. The entire thing is just outrageous.
That's Jesse Showalter. He agreed to watch the video with us, and that's because he's an attorney for Tyrone McAlpin. Together, they're planning to bring an excessive force lawsuit against the Phoenix Police Department.
12 years he went to.
But before we get into that, first let's get into why officers went after Tyrone.
And they wouldn't even give me a water jug.
When we look at the body camera that we've seen so far, what it shows is that Circle K employees had a Caucasian male in the store causing problems, and they called the police to trespass this person who wouldn't leave.
Hey, you guys just want this guy to trespass? Okay.
And when police arrive, they don't do any investigation to find out what this guy was doing in the store. Instead, they talk to the guy, and he claims that he was assaulted and points to somebody in the street that he claims did it.
The guy pointed at Tyrone, who was across the street.
You're saying that's the guy that assaulted
right there. With the backwards head on, yep.
I mean, so we have a situation where the officers respond. Some white guy says, hey, no, some black guy assaulted me, and they just drop what they're doing and head right over there.
That's what the video shows.
He was standing outside the door opening and saying,
that dude.
Why don't you wait here first?
The black guy?
Yeah.
And that takes us back to this point.
Let's see.
And this police officer, out of the gate, assaults him, and then uses Tyrone's attempts to protect himself to try to justify felony charges.
Officials charged Tyrone with aggravated assault and resisting arrest. In their reports, officers wrote Tyrone tried to walk away from them, took a fighting stance, threw repeated punches at them, and bit one of them.
Everything that I see in that video, as well as the other officer's body camera, looks like Tyrone's just trying to avoid being harmed by these officers. And that only makes them escalate the situation and increase the degree of violence that they're using.
One of the officers says Tyrone bit him. I mean, how do you respond to that?
Tyrone was face down on the ground with two officers striking and choking him, and that the only way that Tyrone could have possibly bit anybody on the hand or wrist is if one of those officers placed their hand or wrist in his mouth. And what it looks like from the video is that the officer who claims he was bitten was using an illegal chokehold on Tyrone.
Here's the question that, invariably, undoubtedly will be asked. Why didn't he just comply?
And the answer is easy, is he's deaf. He couldn't understand what they were doing, and he had done nothing wrong.
What
mess with him for no reason.
What kind of disabilities do you have?
He's deaf and he's got cerebral palsy.
Okay.
And I've been having to phone with him since Circle K.
How is he deaf if you've been on the phone?
Because I know sign language, that's why. I signed to him. That's why.
Nowhere in their police reports did the two officers document they were told about Tyrone's disabilities. But records do show when another cop went back to check store surveillance footage and talk to witnesses, none of it supported the white guy's claims. Remember, he told officers Tyrone assaulted him at the store. But there was no evidence of any assault. Store employees say the white guy was the one causing problems, getting aggressive, laying on the floor, and refusing to leave. In fact, store employees told police Tyrone tried to get him out of the store and eventually just left. Now, this all happened on August 19th. That's 2 months after the Department of Justice released the results of its historic investigation into Phoenix PD.
It's almost like a single example that illustrates all of the problems highlighted in the DOJ's report.
Among many failures, the DOJ found Phoenix PD has a pattern and practice of racial bias, escalation, and not giving people a chance to comply before using force, excessive use of tasers, dangerous use of chokeholds, and violating the rights of people with disabilities.
It's hard for me to understand how the city can come out and say with a straight face that it is meeting the DOJ report head on when this man, Tyrone McAlpin, is being charged with assault on police officers for this incident where, the video tells the whole story.
Hey, get up! Stand up!
Oh. I mean, so still now a month later, he's still facing charges for this.
That's correct.
He's in cuffs.
Now, as you just heard, Tyrone is still facing several felony charges. In fact, even though those officers are under internal investigation, they still just went into court to testify against Tyrone. And as you can see, our cameras were there, and a judge ruled there was probable cause for the case to move forward. Now, in our next report, you'll hear those officers on the stand, hear their justification for the arrest, and you'll also see some bizarre moments in the courtroom.
Very tough to watch. Thank you very much, Dave.